A clay water jar waits by the wall of Naaman's house, its rim chipped white. Beside it, an unnamed Israelite girl opens her mouth and risks one sentence. Why does a captive speak healing over the man who wears her country's dust on his boots? She was taken in a raid, carried out of Israel with the noise of hooves and iron at her back. Now her hands fold linen for the wife of the Syrian commander. The house is large, but captivity can fit inside a single room. At first it looks like a servant speaking to her mistress, but beneath it is the ache of a torn homeland, held under the tongue. Because this is not just a story about household service. It is a story about mercy surviving where bitterness had every right to grow. She could have kept silent. Silence would have cost her nothing. A lowered gaze, a folded cloth, another day passing under another people's roof. Instead, one sentence rises from her like water from a deep well. I wish my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy. That sentence carries two countries inside it: Syria, where she serves, Samaria, which she cannot touch. Her mouth becomes the narrow bridge between wound and mercy. Naaman is not a small man in this world. He commands soldiers. He stands near kings. His armor catches light, but under the bronze his skin bears the pale mark he cannot order away. The disease sits where rank cannot reach it. Gold cannot scrub it clean. Horses, banners, and victories stop at the edge of a single patch of flesh, so the house holds a strange reversal. The mighty man needs what the captive girl knows. The one with no standing becomes the keeper of the road. This is the first quiet wound in the story. Did anyone in that house ever ask her name? Scripture leaves her unnamed, as if the empire took even that and found it unnecessary to return. Still she speaks well of the land she was torn from. She does not spit out Samaria like a curse. She offers it like bread. That is the hard grain in this passage. She remembers home, and memory does not make her cruel. The place that was taken from her remains, in her mouth, a place of healing. At first, it looks like information passed upward through a household, but beneath it is a soul refusing to let pain become its only language, because this is not just a story about where a prophet lives. It is a story about what captivity cannot finally seize. Naaman carries her sentence into larger rooms. He tells the king of Syria. Letters are written. Silver is weighed. Garments are folded. Power does what power always does. It tries to purchase what can only be received. The road to Israel fills with horses and chariots. Wheels cut the earth. Dust rises behind wealth and rank, all of it moving because a girl in a servant's place spoke a single, clean line. And still the chip jar remains in the house. The jar cannot travel to Samaria. The girl cannot ride with the company. Yet her sentence goes farther than she can go. When Naaman reaches the king of Israel, panic tears through the court. Robes rip. Hands lift in alarm. A king hears the word leprosy and thinks only of provocation and war. That is the second wound in the story. The captive girl saw more clearly than a king. The powerless heart often recognizes mercy before the guarded throne does. Then Elisha sends for Naaman. No trumpet opens the door. No spectacle greets the commander. A messenger steps out with plain instructions. Go wash in the Jordan 7 times. Naaman recoils. The sentence is too small for his pride. He came with silver, with horses, with expectation. He receives river water and a number. Here the story turns again. The mighty man who crossed borders for healing now stumbles over simplicity. The captive girl had no difficulty trusting the prophet she could not see. The commander resists the prophet standing within reach. His servants speak him back from anger. They do not flatter him. They place the matter in his hands like a basin. If the prophet had asked for some great thing, would you not have done it? So Naaman goes down to the Jordan. The river does not bow to his rank. Mud grips the bank. Water closes over his shoulders once, twice, until the seventh descent strips him of argument. And there, in the river, the first sentence of the story ripens. The girl's small witness reaches its fruit in a body she will never watch emerge. Flesh comes up clean where armor could not help. The chipped rim of the jar returns in memory here. Water at the house. Water in the river. One vessel stood in captivity. One river ran in freedom. Both held the shape of mercy. At first it looks like a healing miracle for a foreign commander, but beneath it is the humbling of power before grace. Because this is not just a story about diseased skin made new. It is a story about enemies being led to cleansing by voices they were trained not to notice. Naaman returns changed, and not only in flesh. He stands before Elisha without bargaining. The man who arrived with payment now speaks of the God of Israel. Yet the story keeps its deepest weight on the girl who does not reappear. She is hidden behind the larger names, as many holy witnesses are. Her sentence remains, slender and bright, like a lamp left burning in a back room. What must it have cost her to say it? To bless the house that owned her labor, to remember the prophet of Samaria without collapsing under homesickness, to let the wound in her life become an opening instead of a blade. This changes the moment from an old court narrative into a condition of the soul. You also know the temptation to let injury harden into private law. You also know the strange command to keep a clean mouth in an unclean place. Some wounds make silence feel righteous. Some losses teach the tongue to close like a fist. The girl shows another way, and it is not soft. It is costly as bread given away when your own stomach remembers hunger. She does not excuse the raid. Scripture does not polish the violence. The theft remains a theft. The torn home remains torn. But inside that hard truth, another truth stands. God lets healing cross enemy lines through the very person those lines have crushed. Grace enters the house of conquest, wearing a servant's dress. This is how the kingdom often moves, not first through the throne, the letter, the silver, or the horses. Through the unnamed, through the overlooked, through the one carrying water to a room that does not belong to her. And now the unanswered thread returns. No one told us her name. Perhaps that absence is part of the witness. The world that counts commanders and kings often cannot count the soul that saved them from themselves. The other thread returns with it. Why did a captive speak healing over the man tied to her people's grief? Because pain had not become her master. Because Samaria still lived in her as promise, not only as loss. Near the end, the chipped jar stands again by the wall. Its mouth is small. Still it holds enough water for a household. So does a faithful sentence, plain and unadorned, hold enough mercy to alter a nation's memory. You realize that 2 Kings 5 is not just about Naaman washing in the Jordan. It is about the hidden witness that carries healing farther than power can travel. What looked like history was a map of the soul before God, where the unnamed captive keeps open the road that pride, grief, and empire would gladly close.